Are you ready? Stand by.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Three Gun Show, brought to you by Armalite. I'm your host, Dave Hartman, and this week's topic is the RO competitor relationship and how to be a good RO. And we have a great guest, well versed in this topic, Heath Clevenger. Heath, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
I'm excited to have you. And before we get going here, a couple things I want to tell the audience about. One is the Patreon group. So the Three Gun Show has a Patreon subscription service that if you like content like this, if you like the match recon episodes that we do, you can join as a Patreon supporter for the Three Gun Show at patreon.com/3gunshow. That's Patreon. And you can think of it like crowdfunding to support an artistic adventure, which is the Three Gun Show. So if this is the type of stuff that you're into and you want to support in what we do to make sure we keep doing it for years to come, patreon.com/3gunshow. And also, this episode is brought to you by Armalite, and Armalite's giving special discounts to Three Gun Show listeners on their line of three-gun rifles and parts. With the end of the year coming up, now is the time to make the decision if you've been on the fence, especially if you're in Colorado. Email me, dave@threegunshow.com, if you're interested, and I will hook you up with the best pricing that you can find anywhere. And if you haven't figured it out yet, the reason I don't mention the pricing on the show is that the price is lower than you can get it in the store. All right, so this one with Heath Clevenger is going to be a good one, so buckle in, and we're going to have a good time here. So, Heath, where are we finding you at today?
At home in York, South Carolina.
Right on. Well, you and I have shot a bunch of matches together. I don't think we've ever shot on a squad, but it seems like I see you everywhere I go, especially in the South.
Yeah, Southeast is pretty much where we venture out from there, but that's our home base here.
Yeah, what's like the farthest west that you've shot?
Oklahoma.
Oh, okay.
Three Gun Nation Nationals 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Out in Tulsa. Awesome.
Yeah, we drove out there. That was quite a hike.
Yeah, I bet. That's it's a couple day drive, isn't it?
Nah, all one day.
You did that all in one shot?
14, 15 hours one time.
Yeah, I've figured out if I'm going solo, I think like 10 is my limit, and then I've done like an 18-hour one dayer before, and that's just like too much. You get delirious at the end.
Yeah, I mean, one, I used to work 12-hour shifts where the majority of what you do is drive, so I can do 10 or 12 hours fairly easy. Not as easy as I used to could, but fairly easy.
Yeah.
14, 15 is kind of my limit, where I kind of like, Yeah, I might stop and take a nap somewhere along the way on that one. Maybe,
yeah.
Depending on. It's all driven on what time I have. You know what I mean? Because sometimes I don't have a choice.
Yeah, I hear you. With taking off vacation and trying to fit in a couple days of match with a couple days of driving and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so I think that's a good segue into your background, Heath. Let's start with the basics here. Give the audience an idea of who you are off the range.
I am a second generation deputy sheriff at a local sheriff's office here in South Carolina. Currently a lieutenant and / district commander here at my department. And been on I got 20 years in total law enforcement and about 16 years on our SWAT team. And I'm also the entry team leader for our SWAT team here.
Gotcha. So law enforcement background, usually, pardon me here, but from the footage I've seen on NBC, the police officers can't shoot a pistol.
Yeah, I would agree.
So
that usually, yeah. Just leave it at that.
So how did you get into competitive shooting, and how did that turn into three gun?
Well, I went to NRA instructor course probably 12-ish years ago, and the instructor there, got to give him his props. A buddy of mine named Mark Lip at the NRA told me in that class that if you want to be a good instructor, that you need to go compete. And it didn't matter what you competed in as long as you competed, because you would just learn so much more through competition for yourself and teaching others.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so it's still a couple years after that, because I just didn't, at the time, I didn't know how to find competition. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't even know USPSA existed. I didn't know IDPA existed.
Dude, I get people
Really?
all the time saying, I'd love to shoot 3-gun, but there's no matches in my area. And it's
Right.
like, well, where are you at? Like, well, I live in Osage Beach, Missouri. Like, oh, really? Like, one of the largest 3-gun matches in the world in the country is there, and that's Generation
Right.
3-gun. It's trippy. Like, a lot of that stuff can be in your backyard, and you'd never know it.
Yep. So somebody finally started a local IDPA match, and they had this little indoor practice group on like Tuesday nights at a local indoor range. And I was out shooting everybody I was shooting with at the department. So I thought I was smoking hot. And I was like, well, I'm going to go down there and smoke all these guys too. And
yeah.
I did not. So, but I did learn a lot and made a very good friend the first night I was there. It was like similar to an El Prez drill without the turn or something, and I shot it, and I shot all zeros, but it was incredibly slow comparatively. And the guy, Morgan Allen, a really good pistol shooter, walked up to me and said, man, that was really good shooting. Been a lot better if you could have done it fast. And I was like,
was that a compliment?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of like, is he being a jerk? Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, thanks.
But it was, a lot of it's in the delivery too. And I didn't really take it like that. And so I kind of thought about it. And so I chased him down at the back of the range. And I'm like, hey, man, what'd you mean by that? That was as fast as I could. I think that was as fast as I could shoot it like that. And he was like, you think it was, or it was, kind of. And so we got into. He is a very, very technical, breakdown stuff, scientific type shooter, and got me in that as far as looking at what do you do well, what do you not do well, what do you need to train on? Well, you need to train on what you suck at and what gives you the biggest yield. Like you might suck at drawing the gun out of the holster, but if you only do it 6 times a match, does it really matter?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do 100 target transitions. If you could speed your target transitions up 1/10, you could cut a half a second off your draw, and the draw is still not going to yield you what the transitions will yield you. So, looking at stuff like that. But
right.
Anyway, shot with him, got into pistol shooting IDPA. Did that for a couple years. Then the NRA started a tactical police competition.
Mm-hmm.
And my buddy Mark Lipp was running that, and he invited me to the first one that they had here in South Carolina back in 2008. And I went down there and shot that. That was my first experience in 3-gun. And it was way different than the 3-gun that you think of now.
Right. More tactical type stuff, or?
Yeah, well, it's really accuracy driven.
Okay.
Right. So if you can think of let's say an IPSC target, everybody knows what that is, or IDPA. The A zone or the 0 zone on the target is 0 down time wise, but one outside of that, so a C zone or down 1 is actually down 2 seconds.
Oh wow.
TPC, and a D hit or the outer ring, a down 3 for IDPA is actually a 4-second penalty. So
damn.
Yeah, so it is very. It's very accuracy driven. You can shoot the target and look and see if you hit a 0 and make it up, and still probably save time.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's just that accuracy driven to really. But that's what cops need to be doing. Right. Obviously.
I found GSSF was a lot like that too.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I got into that, and I started shooting pistols because I wanted to get better at shooting a pistol and learning how to teach, and I did it just in those couple of years that I shot only pistol, it was unbelievable how my skills grew and how my teaching ability grew to help people at work.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking for a way to do that with a rifle about the time this 3-gun thing come along. And I was like, man, I bet you I will learn so much about how to run my rifle just like I did about my pistol. And I pushed on over into 3-gun. I like shooting pistol and I like shooting a shotgun, but I don't really care for loading it a whole lot. But
well, so did you carry like a carbine at work? Is that
yes,
okay?
M16, just a 11.5-inch commando. That's actually still what I have at work.
Okay, and so then, did you have like much experience with a shotgun at work?
I mean, everybody had 870s to begin with, Remington 870s, and now I grew up shooting and hunting, right?
Okay.
I mean, I was going hunting before I could even carry and shoot a BB gun. I just wanted to go with my dad for the experience.
Right.
And, but literally, I couldn't tell you how old I was the first time I shot a gun, but it was very, very young. And I know by the time I was 6 or 7, we had 2 single action 22 revolver pistols. And my dad would take me out, like on a Sunday afternoon, go buy a brick of 22s, and he'd load one gun and hand it to me, and I'd shoot those 6 and hand that back to him, and he'd hand me another one, and I'd shoot that 6 and hand that back to him, and he'd hand me another one, and it built a lot, explained a lot, safety wise to me when I was a kid. And that's definitely where, I loved shooting when I was a kid. I loved hunting. Still like hunting. I don't do it as much as I used to, but I do enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And but that's where my gun background come from. So
that's awesome. Now, did you find so this is a topic we've talked about on the show a lot, so I'm interested to hear your opinion on it. Did you find that you were hesitant to start 3-gun because of the shotgun requirements?
I won't say I was hesitant, but I didn't like it. Like I immediately figured out, you're kind of hitting on a hot topic for me, just so you know.
Yeah, buddy, let's do it.
I figured out real quick, it didn't really matter how you shoot a shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
It only matters how you load a shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started, it was still like load 4 from the bottom.
Yeah.
Like I remember looking up. I remember thinking I found a pot of gold when I found Rob Romero's YouTube video on exactly how you're supposed to do that.
Yeah. Same here, man.
Oh my God. Like somebody actually explained it. Like I knew I had to load 4 holder, and I could kind of do it, but it was probably taking me, I don't know, 12 seconds to load 4 shells or something, and it was just ridiculous. And, but literally like how to hold your fingers to manipulate everything. I was like, man, this makes so much more sense. And after watching that, it got a lot better. I never was a load 8, shoot 8, shoot 1, load 8, shoot 1 in 8 seconds guy. Never.
Right.
Not with that one. And, I just always have seemed to keep the shotgun. I loved it when they went to twins.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first time I saw that, I was like, I'm buying that. I don't care how much it costs. I'm buying it, And after I bought it and I figured that out, so much better and faster. And then load 4 come along, and I was a little hesitant on that because I was like, man, that seems a lot like the load 4 from before, a little more technical. And but I just worked with it and got it down and ported my shotgun out a little bit and just kind of kept driving. And still, I'd say my shotgun loading is something I do to kind of keep me along, and I definitely lean on the rifle and the pistol.
Mm-hmm.
And that I am not going to win. If my win or loss, well, first off, I don't usually win majors, but if where I place depends on how I'm going to load a shotgun in a match, it's not going to be very good. It's like par, middle of the pack,
yeah,
kind of stuff. And my personal opinion is I don't I can do it, but I don't care for these giant shotgun stages.
Uh-huh.
Because I remember, 18 years ago, an 18 round shotgun stage was big,
Yeah, for sure.
and it's like, oh, well, now you can carry more shotgun shells. Well, now we have to make them bigger.
Well,
No,
the
no,
other
you don't have to make them bigger. You could leave them the same size and just let us load the shotgun once or twice and be done with it.
I feel like a lot of times MDs want to force a reload for an open guy, which is okay when you're shooting like a ton of pistol targets. And I also have 23 tries at
Right.
every magazine I stuff in there. But when you're
I don't get that. Why?
yeah
Why are you trying to do something for the one guy that holds more rounds than any? And you can't do that to an open guy, because if an open guy shows up with a freaking drum,
right
you know what I mean?
exactly.
I think, well, doesn't Michael Whitesides have a drum that runs in his gun? I
Uh,
think I heard him on your show talking about.
I don't know if Whitesides does, but I know Josh Freilich does, and he also
Maybe
shoots
that
a
was it.
dissident shotgun.
Yeah. And so you just can't. I just don't think that's realistic. I don't care for it. I do it. You know what I mean? I'm not a crybaby about it. You know what I mean? Like, I ain't going. But if you talk to me about it personally and about my opinion, then I'll be real quick to tell you. I think shotgun stages should be in the teens
Mm-hmm.
and not in the. Maybe every now and again you could break into the 20 or something like that. But I just don't. If it ain't a shotgun match, I see no
Yeah.
reason for a 30 or 40 round shotgun course.
Yeah.
That's just my personal opinion.
I really like shooting a lot of shotgun. I've kind of become wary of it though, because it seems like the volume of shotgun shells is placed higher than the interestingness or the complexity of a stage.
Right. Well, I mean, it's just, how hard is it to shoot a non-moving target with
Yeah.
shot?
Yeah.
I mean, really. And here's the other problem. If you make it difficult, right, with something other, then, because that's another thing I see is, you see guys set up stages, and they have this one target at 20 yards, right? This one like 4x4 at 20 yards. You're like, Jesus, I got to run like a full choke on this thing to be sure I'm going to knock it down.
Mm-hmm.
But then they got 10 targets that are like 7 yards, and those targets just get annihilated. Like, you cannot beat that thing in the ground enough
Right.
to keep it from getting annihilated every time you shoot it at 10 yards, when you got to choke up like the Dickens to shoot that one target that you made difficult out there at 25 yards.
It's true.
That's stage design and stuff like that, I mean, I've played with, and I got my own theories on it, but
Yeah.
it
It's
makes it tough.
It's interesting because I would think that, hey, backing off of that and like maybe on, especially local matches, like make an array like tube friendly, like in USPSA, they have to make them single stack friendly, right? Or revolver friendly. So if you make like an array, not an array, but a stage, like 9 to 13 rounds, right?
Yep.
One quad load in there somewhere, then that I think would appeal to a lot of people's interests. But
I agree.
you're not going to get like the major matches to not do that, right? So then are you placing
It
your
depends on if you demand it or not. If
that's
enough
true.
people demand it,
Yeah.
if enough people say, "Man, I didn't like that stage. I thought it was too big." You know what I mean?
But
then you could see a change. But
the thing is, like, three gun is such a like a trying to say this nice, a pissing contest, right? Like a tough guy contest that people don't want to complain about the length of like a shotgun stage, and if they did, they would just be looked at as crybabies. Oh, you need to get better at loading, right? I mean,
Right.
that's just how we are.
oh, I tell my wife, Nikki is so fed up. I tell her all the time, I am a shotgun away from shooting open. Right? Like, really, that's all I need is a box fed shotgun. and I'll shoot open. I don't need a dot on my pistol to shoot open. I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Like I could shoot open class. I just need a shotgun. Now that don't mean I'm gonna go beat Jerry or anything, but I could have a great time enjoying myself sticking a box full of shotgun. Then you make that shotgun stage as long as you want. As long as I got magazines to feed that thing with, I'll shoot as much as you want, then, bro.
Well, I know some guys in Houston, Texas that'll sell you one.
Yeah. I've had several offers. I have a buddy, a local guy that has nothing to do with competition that has a I don't even know if it's an actual Saiga or what, but it's got a box fed shotgun, and it is actually out in the car right now. He let me borrow it.
Uh-oh.
So yeah, he said keep it as long as you want. So I see a open division at least monthly match in my future.
Heck yeah, man! Heard it here first.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested to play in a couple different divisions next year for 2018, at least on the local match level, where I can kind of try out like the wobbly giraffe legs kind of thing. I'm gonna shoot at least one match in heavy, which would be kind of fun.
Yeah,
I've never done that before.
Yeah, I could do heavy. I got a 45. I could do that.
Yeah, but
I mean, I could definitely shoot heavy. I don't think that would be a big deal. I think it would be hard to only shoot the target one time.
Yeah, for sure.
But,
because I would just be used to like whack, 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 whack.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a completely different game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Heath, we have quite the topic to talk about here. I guess you and I, gosh, I'm trying to remember when we initially talked about this. It has to have been like a year ago. But
it's close to it. It's gotta be.
But then we talked about this at Pro-Am this year, and then we saw each other again at the Brownells, ladies match, the fall fest.
Yep.
And you were out there ROing for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, dude, what are you doing here? And then we just kind of got to chatting again, and we thought, let's resurrect this idea. So I'm pumped that we actually get to talk about this and to share it with the community, because I think from the bullet points you sent me, there's a lot of great information here that I think people are really going to enjoy.
Yeah, I hope so, because a lot of this, if you RO, then both sides of the coin, because you don't RO every match you go to. At some point in time, you're just a shooter, and then when you are ROing, you understand that being pulled in two different directions almost all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
mean,
it's okay. The thing that I've noticed, and you kind of put a finer point on it in the email you sent me, is that there are like the quote unquote usual suspects for ROs, right? There's I've seen you all over the country running a timer, and that's just like when we happen to run into each other, so like our schedules match up, So I've found that the people that RO in South Carolina, RO in Texas, et cetera, and that's kind of cool, because then stage becomes like a little mini reunion. But I'm also hoping that at the end of this, that shooters who only shoot can understand the need for us to get out there and to also contribute, even if it's just one match a year, because there's so many shooters. I feel like if each of us RO'd one match a year, we'd probably have enough volunteers, because right now it's kind of hard to get volunteers, right?
It generally is, but there's a caveat to that too. The reason you see the same guys everywhere is generally because if you're a good RO and the match director knows you to be a quality RO, then you get asked, you get requested to come in and RO some of these matches, because you know what I mean? Like, the quality of your RO can determine the quality of a match.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, so you're like a victim of your own success, really.
Yes.
And
yes, you can be.
I have found that Well, it's like a customer service thing. Like if you go to Starbucks and the person serving coffee there is rude to you, then screw Starbucks, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's the reality of life. That's our face-to-face interactions are with the people that we consider representatives of an organization, right?
That's right. And you are selling entertainment,
Yeah.
and it's just like it doesn't matter if I'm a representative of the department that I work for, no matter where I'm at or what I'm doing, or if you work for United Airlines, you know what I mean? And if you're tied to them somehow and you do something that makes the media, it's probably going to say, United Airlines employee, blah, 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 blah. So when you're at that match, you are an extension of the match, a representative of the match, good or bad.
Yeah, it's true. Well, let's start with what do you consider like the main responsibilities of a range officer?
The responsibilities, you got to keep all the scores correctly. That's one of the main things. You got to keep the match moving and on schedule because those match directors have it averaged out, so it takes each shooter, 3 minutes, 5 minutes to get through that stage, and you gotta. It's your responsibility to keep that going. You're trying to keep the shooter as happy as you can because, again, you're selling entertainment, and if they don't like it, they won't be back. If they won't be back, a match may not happen. And in the process, you're also trying to keep the range master and match director happy with what's going on because if something happens out of your control that slows your stage down, they just want to see you fix it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've got a ton of pressure on them to get everybody through there. And if something happens, they don't want you standing around waiting. If there's something that you can do to fix it, you need to be fixing it. You need to get that squad moving, and you need to make things happen. That's your responsibility as an RO.
Do you feel like keeping the range master and match director happy and keeping the shooter happy are two like conflicting priorities? Does it ever feel like that?
They can be, yeah. Because the shooter wants most of the time. You get some shooters that take longer than others in their prep time. They want that sight picture from every possible rifle position. Like, hey man, we got to get going. Like, you look through the scope, you set it up, let's go. I ain't got time for you to look, prone, kneeling, and standing all from the same position to try to figure out where you want to shoot this thing from.
Right.
You should have had that figured out when you stepped up here.
Right.
So yeah, because like I say, the match directors basically they want a fair match. They want you making good calls, and they want you moving people on time. And the people that you RO aren't necessarily concerned about your timetable. They're concerned about their match.
Right. That's very true.
So, and it needs to be some. I mean, it's just like anything else. Like any good relationship, there's some give and take there. You know what I mean? Like you can't take all the time and me give all the time. Like I got to give you a little bit and you got to give me a little bit for this to work well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and do you feel like, because most of the knowledge that we have in the shooting sports is like tribal knowledge where it's passed down, well, for example, like you said with Rob Romero's video, like that is innovative. Like Jansen and Rob were the only ones that were putting out YouTube videos back then, but there's plenty of dudes that knew how to weekend load or, load for or whatever you want to call it. So like all that came around through tribal knowledge. So if someone doesn't tell you, you don't know. Right.
Right.
So do you think there's
yeah.
Do you think there's like a, is your dog snoring, by the way?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I just felt like I should probably call it what it is so people don't think like you got a stomach problem or something.
No, I have two English bulldogs that are both currently asleep and snoring.
That's awesome.
6 feet from me. Sorry.
That's totally fine. So Do you feel like there should be some sort of like agreement, like 20 commandments or whatever of ROing and shooter relationship?
There probably should be. That would probably be a good thing to kind of take out a. Maybe we could like condense this down or separate
Yeah,
what I have in the bullet points to do that. Because
yeah,
I mean, the one thing that you generally see, like you generally see people start three gun after they've shot pistol
mm-hmm.
somewhere. Generally, not
Mm-hmm.
all the time, but generally. So they kind of understand shooter etiquette. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I need to be up here. I need to be ready to go. That kind of thing. And yeah, there's a bunch to be said there.
Sure. Well, I started three gun first. I'd never
Right.
shot a pistol match. And to show how ignorant I was, when they were like, "Oh, we're in a cold range," I thought, "Well, that's dumb.
Right.
Like, why would I not have my pistol loaded in my holster?"
Right.
And I was lucky enough to be at a small enough club where we would shoot three gun with one squad. So
Right.
if you were the weak link, it was pretty apparent. And so there was guys had been doing it for as long as I'd been alive, saying, "Oh, hey, help us with this. Oh, hey, do this. Make sure you got your stuff ready and stand right here." So
Right.
I was fortunate in that arena, but some of these bigger matches shoot on a local level. We're seeing 90 to 120 shooters at some clubs. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of hard to. I mean, I bet you lose track of new people like that.
Oh, you definitely do. You definitely do. I mean, we see that at the Clinton House. It's not odd for us to see, depending on the month and what's going on, 60, 80, almost 100 shooters at a monthly club level match.
Yeah, and that's a lot. That's easy to lose.
Yeah.
Well, so
yeah, I mean,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, let's lay it out here, man.
Yeah.
What
So the first thing, when I'm ROing this, and a lot of this is taking more from the major match
Mhm.
than the local stuff, because the local stuff's usually a little more relaxed. But if they say be ready for a stage brief at 8 o'clock in the morning, that don't mean loading your mags at 8 o'clock in the morning and figuring out exactly what stage you're on at 8 o'clock in the morning. That means you need to have your stuff together, literally waiting on the RO to give a stage brief.
Yeah, I've screwed this one up a couple times this year and felt like an idiot, and then I felt rushed, and then felt like I was holding my squad back. I've showed up, 5 minutes before the walkthrough, and they're like, "Oh, we already gave the walkthrough." Like, geez, guys. So it means show up early.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you show up at 8, if you're getting out of the car at 8 o'clock, you're late.
Yeah, and I've done
like
that, and I
mean, we've all done
apologize.
it sometime. You know what I mean? I've done it.
Yeah, for sure.
I've been running late. Traffic, whatever. Just got out of bed late because it might have been a 2.5 hour drive to the match or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
it happens. And it's not one of them things. It's like, oh God, it's just terrible. But it really does kind of like that's your base.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you need to be there on time. And then the other thing I could tell you I've experienced firsthand is I've been given the stage brief at a major match, and experienced, I mean, very experienced shooters whose name I wouldn't dare say, really not pay you any attention because they think they know what needs to be done on the stage.
Right.
And I've also seen them paid dearly in time penalties, and then also, do other things like, oh, well, you never said that. And, no, I said it in a stage brief, but you were too busy walking around the stage to listen to me.
Yeah.
But I said it.
That's one thing that bothers me is when someone's downrange, like air gunning, and the squad will shout, "Hey, come listen to the stage brief." Oh, I can hear. Like, really, dude? I'm standing next to this guy and I can't hear.
Right. And when I'm the RO, I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you got it, I'm not one to argue with you.
Yeah.
You got it, brother. Knock it out. I don't. And that's another thing I think. Kind of skipping off the beat, but we'll get there about, if you're an RO, don't get wrapped around the axle about that. You know what I mean? They're gonna pay the penalty for that, or they're not. They either really do have it, they understand everything. They read the stage brief the night before, and they don't need to hear your version of it, you know. And if they can rock it out like that, then let them. You know?
Yeah. One thing I'll say from a competitor perspective is always listen to the stage brief when the time comes, because even if you did read it the night before, it might have changed overnight for various reasons, you know.
Yeah, it can.
But I'll also say I'm not a very good auditory learner, so I will listen and then read it afterwards, and that helps me get it better than just listening.
Right. And you know, when I say be ready, that most of the time, you know, if you've had me as a RO, you know that when I say be on deck, that means you need to be standing there waiting on me to get back from the end of the previous person's stage when you're on deck. That's not walkthrough time. You know, that's you need to have all your guns and all your ammunition either on you, in your hand, or within arm's reach when I get there. You know, because you don't think about it, but you know, if you have 100 competitors, 100 competitors a day, 200 competitors total, and you spend an extra 20 or 30 seconds on each one of them waiting to get ready, waiting on them to walk up there, waiting on them to go back to their car. I forgot a magazine. Man, that ends up to a lot of time, and that can be the difference between getting in a stage before the sun goes down or not by the end of the day.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I didn't understand that when I first started shooting majors. I always thought, like, oh, these guys are so uptight about time, and we're supposed to be having fun and on vacation here, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But when you put it in that context of a half a minute for 200 competitors, you know, is over hour and 40 minutes worth of time. It's like that. That's a lot.
Yes. I mean, think about it, especially right now with the time change.
Yeah.
An hour and 40 minutes. I mean, that's the difference between full daylight and full dark.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know? and so if you're that guy dragging around and not being ready, you might be screwing yourself and everybody else you're at the match with that gets hung up on a stage late. You know, don't be that guy.
Yeah. So what else does an RO want from a competitor? What are the expectations here?
It should be understood that it is up to the competitor to tell the RO how you plan to shoot the long range, right? Because ROs run 75 people before you show up, and all 75 of them have started on this one target.
Yep.
And you looked at it and you go, "Oh, I can save a half a second if I start on the opposite side." And you don't tell the RO, it's not the RO's fault he didn't call hit.
Yeah. I've done this one too. This happened to me. Man, I've done a lot of stupid shit apparently. But I started on like a 375-yard target in Minnesota when everyone else started on the 175 and worked out. And I just went far to near instead of near to far. And RO was definitely not looking at the target when I hit it.
Yep. And you're looking at the target swinging in the air going, why isn't he calling my hit?
I know.
I hit the, you know, and you know, I didn't see it.
Come on,
man.
They're
still looking at a target that you ain't even looking at.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And for God's sakes, on the clock is not the time to ask questions of the RO.
No.
Like, why aren't you calling my hits? Well, probably because he's not looking at the target you're shooting at. So you probably didn't do something ahead of time. Maybe the RO made a mistake, but more than likely, you didn't take care of what you needed to before you started shooting.
What other kind of heads up or communication can you give the RO before you start?
You go to these stages. Three Gun Nation's really good about putting these like mirrored stages out. Start anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere with any gun.
Shoot the corresponding targets with the corresponding guns, and people get very creative. But it generally will boil down to 2 or 3 different ways to shoot those. You know what I mean? They're really hitting 100 different ways to shoot that good. So if you got something that is odd or whatever, or even if you don't, I still think it's a good practice. Go, hey, I'm going to start here. I'm going to finish there. You know what I mean? So that way you don't want to run into the RO and get into whether you need a a reshoot or not. Because again, even if somebody did something wrong and you deserve a reshoot, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't go well on the reshoot. And you just threw everybody in the match 5 minutes behind so you could get a reshoot.
Right.
Multiple issues with that. So,
right.
And I brought this up earlier about, ROs not getting upset, but, ROs are human beings that make mistakes and try to be patient with them. They're doing a lot of work out there, and I've never got paid for ROing. I've been, had match fees covered and hotel room or whatever, wherever you're staying covered and stuff like that. But 9 times out of 10, you still come out of pocket for, depending on the match, how much to be there too. Longer than the shooters that you're ROing. They show up for a day or two, 2 days, maybe 3 days, depending on the match. You've been there for a whole week, so
yeah.
If you have a disagreement with them, just be patient. Don't get upset. Understand that you are not the center of their universe.
Yeah.
They still have a whole match to run, whether they made a mistake or not.
Well, and understand like the RO match, although the range officers does get a free match slot, it is the RO match,
Right.
which is not always as fair as
Nope.
the competitors match. Sometimes you're shooting a 9-stage match in one day.
Yep. And sometimes things get I can't say this happens a lot, but every now and again, something didn't get proofed out real good before the RO shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And you might burn a stage down, and then somebody else find a problem with the stage after we got to reshoot everybody on this stage because we had to change the stage.
Yeah.
Well, you smoked that first one. You don't want to shoot it again,
Exactly.
If you went 1 for 1 on a long range stage and you got to go back and shoot it again, you're like, oh, really, dude?
And like you just said, like the reshoot often doesn't work out in your favor.
Dude, it rarely does. It rarely does. So, but that's a big thing. I see people get upset with RO because, even if the RO did make a bad call, just, hey, man, I disagree. I think I need to reshoot. I think this, I think that, whatever. And if they're like, no, which is probably going to be general because they wouldn't make a call 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100. They didn't believe the call was right to begin with. No, I know I've heard the horror stories of the USPSA guy that was +2ing everybody or whatever.
Yeah.
Don't +2 me, bro. But
yeah.
But guys just I've never met anybody like that. I can't say it would never happen, but I've never met anybody like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're not out to screw anybody. You know what I mean? So don't take it personal. Like, just be like, hey, can I speak with the range master? And stay calm. And generally, if you stay calm, they're going to be a lot more calm.
Sure.
And on the other hand, if you get nasty with the RO, like you said, you travel around to all these major matches and you see a lot of the same guys, especially CROs,
mm-hmm.
the guys that are running the timer and making decisions. You see those guys all over the place. So you don't make that guy your enemy, or you want to make that guy your friend.
Yeah, exactly.
And it just always, I never forget, I was actually at an IDPA match. And, of course, you cannot get any more subjective than a cover call at an IDPA match.
It's true.
Which I understand. I think they fixed. They finally started using fault lines like USPSA or something. But
yeah, there was a total sidetrack, but I got to laugh at because how dangerous they said the competitor said the fault lines would be. Well, what if someone trips over them? Like, okay, well, we got fault lines in USPSA for like 40 years now.
Yeah. Yeah, people do fall over them sometimes, but
yeah,
that's why you have to have safe gun handling skills.
Exactly.
So, but this was a long time ago, back when it was very subjective, and a guy gigged me on a cover call, and I was like, man, this is BS. Like I know where my foot. I was behind. Nope, you were standing out in the doorway. Nope. I mean, he just was not bending.
Mm-hmm.
And then some other guy come up behind me and did the exact same thing. And he let him roll right through, and I was like, on the inside, I was fired up. And but I was like, you know what? That guy, was kind of. I mean, I didn't know the guy at all, but I guess say we were maybe a little brash towards each other just right out of the get go.
Mm-hmm.
In the earlier stages of the day. Nothing, you know what I mean? Nothing out of the way, just not like super friendly.
Right.
And after that, I was like, I'm gonna make that guy my friend. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna make that guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like so, I set out on a mission to be super nice to that guy, even though he gigged me on that BS call. I was gonna be super nice to that guy, and then we did end up being friends. And you know what I mean? And not saying that you're going to get something because you're friends you wouldn't get from somebody else. I hope you wouldn't. I hope everybody's integrity is higher than that. But,
sure.
You know, you're definitely not going to get something you wouldn't get if the guy don't like you.
Yeah. And it's just it's unfortunate, but it's like a fact of life, you know, that.
Right.
And I guess in this small of a community, it would behoove you to have a reputation as a good dude and
Yes.
as or a good lady and as a polite person. You know, if you have a reputation for being like a hothead to ROs,
Mm-hmm.
the
we know when you come up.
Exactly. ROs all talk. I've spent a lot of time with groups of ROs. They all talk. If you did something on day one, by day 1.5 or day half, whatever, halfway through that day, every RO knows what you did.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
So when you come to their stage, there's already like a bias of like, okay, well, I got to watch out for Clevenger here because, you know, he shouted at this RO over here or he tried to get away with this. And so now you're
he tried to bully his way through because it was a questionable call or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so now you're being more closely scrutinized. And would you rather have the benefit of the doubt, or would you rather have someone start in a defensive posture?
Guarded.
Yeah.
Just looking for you to screw up. Because, I mean,
absolutely.
So a lot of the ROing I did before Three Gun got as popular as it was that tactical police competition.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a group of individuals, and we knew, like, when they all shot together. They always squatted together. And all the ROs knew, like, when you seen them walked up, it was like, if I could just get through this squad right here. You know what I mean? Because it was just constant complaining. And, well, it shouldn't be like that. You know, it was always something. They were always fighting, bickering, complaining, you know, and everybody hated RO on them. Everybody, you know. And you just don't want to be that guy, you know, because I can get, you know, not anybody was out to get him, but I can guarantee he didn't get any breaks. If there was a break to be had, wasn't nobody bending over backwards to help that crew out.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so.
Yeah. Sorry to judge up bad memories there, but yeah, I mean, it's true. So it's just like good life advice, like be a good person, you know?
Mm-hmm. And it kills me because, I mean, you have some people that are very big representatives of the sport.
Mm-hmm.
And you have an expectation of how they should act, especially as it relates to other people in the sport. And, you know, sometimes they get fired up. You know, I guess maybe it's a little different if that's how you make your living, you know, but to me, it would seem like how you handle it should be just as important as how the call comes down.
Yeah.
Because you're representing everybody on your jersey. You're representing everybody in Three Gun when stuff goes viral on the internet, you know, so.
Well, and you look at, like, you know, it's almost cliche for me to use the example of Jerry Mitchell like on the show because absolutely everyone does for everything, but he's just like a very good example of how to act and conduct yourself on the range as a shooter and as a representative, and even as someone who's trying to make their living on it. You know, if you're trying to make your living on it, then maybe you should be a nicer person than average. You know, you don't want to be the average Joe out there.
So I have had the pleasure of ROing him several times and having a disagreement on a call where he wanted to speak to the range master, and you are correct. He was completely polite dealing with me. We disagreed on the call, but he called the range master down there to speak with the range master about it. I wasn't upset about it. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
regardless, me as a RO, I don't, other than the fact that the range master understands that that's going to add time to my stage, I don't care if you get a reshoot or not.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, it's technically completely out of my power. Because unless there was something like somebody didn't reset something, or I'm like, no, they need a reshoot, or no, they have to have a reshoot because they had an unfair competitive advantage of shooting this stage without having to shoot that target. I don't control who gets reshoots as a RO.
Right.
The range master controls who gets reshoots. Technically, the range master still controls the ones where there are mistakes on the stage, but you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, at least the RO's kind of in control of that. You should have made sure it was reset. I've made that mistake before. It's going to happen.
Sure.
Especially when you've been out. It's 100 degrees. It's the second or third, fourth day you've been out in the weather. God forbid you show up to build a match beforehand. You've been out there for 3 days building a match, 1 day shooting a match, and 2 days working a match. By that last day of the match, it's tough. It's tough to stay sharp.
Yeah.
RO. It really is.
Well, how does that fatigue affect your performance as an RO? Like, do you get surly or tired, or do you get a case of the
Oh
FS?
yeah. I think it's just people. I try to treat ROing the same way I do shooting. Like I try to keep Gatorades on hand, water and Gatorade. I'm trying to eat stuff to keep me going. You know what I mean? Because especially if you got a stage with a bunch of movement, like you're shooting, if you think about a competitor, especially on a major match, at most you're exerting yourself 4 times in a day.
Right.
If you're an RO and that match is full, that's 90 to 100 times a day that you're running behind the shooter from the start of the stage to the end of the stage.
Right, and you have to be cognizant of
Yes.
the safety of the entire,
Right.
the entire match.
You
right?
are, man, and that goes up and down because you got some guys. I know you can tell some new guys or not to pick on anybody, but I've seen some older guys that just don't move around all that well. You know what I mean? I fully intend to probably be one of those guys when I get older. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm already got joint issues, so I'm sure by the time I'm 55, I'm gonna have a hard time walking. But you shouldn't try to sprint if but some of them guys
Right.
just they don't know how to turn it down, and they're not real steady on their feet, and they really, you can get really geeked up watching people being sure they're safe with the guns. So just watching because you're like, man, this guy really might kick over. Or he's got to make it over that route right there in this course of fire, and it'd be real easy for him to kick that and fall on his face and drop his gun. And
Dude, why you
got to
bring that up,
guns,
man?
there's no way to determine which way they're going to be pointed necessarily.
Yeah, and that's happened to me. But
The squibs, I can't tell you how many people I've stopped that during the course of fire shot a squib and they were about to pull the trigger on the next round, and I'm yelling, no, 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 no.
yeah,
Scaring me and them both. But
yeah, no kidding. Yeah, that's definitely
But
got to be something in the RO training is identifying a squib.
yeah, it was funny because the first, I think the very first time I actually heard it, I'd had it explained a lot of times. But I was ROing. It was probably actually the first major match I RO'd was a TPC match up in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And a guy I later got to become friends with was shooting the match and come through and had a squib in a M&P. And I don't know I'd never heard it before, but I knew when he pulled the trigger, that wasn't right. I mean, it was loud enough to pop, but it wasn't a bang. And I was like, that's got to be a squib. I just knew it. Like, that has got to be a squib.
Yeah.
And I stopped him, and sure enough, it was. And you know, he was appreciative that his gun didn't blow up, and I was glad that his gun didn't explode in my face. And we were all happy for it afterwards.
Yeah, no
But
kidding. Well, I hadn't heard a. This sounds weird. Like as much as I've shot, I had not heard a squib up until like a few weeks ago, where Carmen Loud actually caught one on video in one of her training sessions, and she posted it like, "Hey, this is a squib," and I was like, "Holy crap! I did not expect like what I would expect it to sound like." Like I've been on the range when squibs have happened, but I've never been like the guy to catch it or standing next to the shooter. I've always
right.
been like stuffing mags or off the line or something when it's happened. So it was
I've been quite close to, like I said, that was my first one at the first major match I RO'd, and but after that, man, I really couldn't count them. I
jeez,
mean, I've
that's
come
crazy.
across. I think I've had one that wasn't an actual squib. It was just like a super, super light load.
Mm-hmm.
And they were even like, I don't know if the bullet's still in the barrel or not. You know what I mean? And you
Right.
look like, oh, wow. It must have like bounced off the paper because it's not in the barrel. You know, but hey, man, I'll give a reshoot over that anytime over taking a chance of somebody getting hurt.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
safety, that should be your number one focus for RO. At the beginning, but your number one function is to be sure that everybody goes home with the same number of holes they showed up with.
Yep.
You know,
It's
no
true.
extra leaky holes.
Well, so from the what competitor's perspective, then what would ideally what does a competitor want from an RO?
Judging from me and being on both sides, I say I want that RO to read that stage brief the same to if I'm the last squad to shoot that match as he did to the first squad that shot that match. Because that's if you start adding stuff in there, then that's not fair to somebody. If you add stuff into the stage brief 3 squads in
Yeah.
that you didn't tell the first squad, you know what I mean? Like it's little, but it's still an unfair advantage that you're throwing in there.
I always wonder
You
about
know,
that. Like a lot of times there's, they read the written stage brief and they're like, okay, well let us tell you a few things about this stage.
right?
And I wonder like did you learn that in the third squad or did you start that when you started the first squad? Like when did you think like, oh, we should just tell people about this right here so they don't get hung up?
Right. Well, and the truth is, I've been on both sides of that.
Sure.
I've looked at a stage and been like, this is an issue, and this right here is an issue. You know what I mean? Just like a potential problem. Like I want to go ahead and warn people, like target placements on 120 degrees or 130 degrees. So somebody that's running really fast
Mm-hmm.
could really easy run up on a target and break the 180 or you got to stop at this one spot, but you can see this target from over there. And just because you can see it there doesn't mean it's safe to shoot it from there,
Right.
you know. And that's kind of like that's where the RO's in the middle, because that's really up to the stage designer to take care of that. And when they put the match down, you know, you just got to keep safety in mind.
Yeah.
And sometimes that might require you putting a no shoot up on the back of a shoot target. You know what I mean? So at least if they see it, they're like, "Oh, it's white. It's not brown."
Right.
Or any number of things, a blocking target, a barrel, something to try to help save people from themselves sometimes, I guess.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and that seems like a fine balance between match design.
yeah. But, you want ROs making fair calls, and if it's a question as a RO, if you're like, then it goes to the shooter.
Right.
That's my opinion. You know what I mean? Like if you think they might have hit it, they hit it. Or if you slip up and you call hit because they hit the dirt so close to the steel that it flashed just like very similar to the paint or the lead splash off of a steel target and you called hit, they got it. You called it, they got it.
Yep.
There ain't no going back for that, and so you got to be fair, and ROs should also, if they make a mistake, own it. You know what I mean? Like if you just completely miss something and it cost that competitor something, time wise, a penalty or something like that, then you need to be like, you know what? No, I made a mistake. I did. I just made a mistake. I apologize. I mean, I've had to do it several times. It ain't never, you don't ever feel good about it. You know what I mean? Because the worst thing is, it's the RO's responsibility to be sure the stage is reset. And there's like one clay target that's on a stand by itself that nobody saw before the guy runs. And it's a good shooter, and they get up there and just lay down a smoking good time, right? Everything goes right. The loads went right. The long range went right. Everything looked good. And as an RO, you're just like, man, that was cool to watch, and then you get, but in the middle of that, you say, oh crap, that I didn't make sure that clay was set on that one target, right? And so they have an unfair competitive advantage, and then you got to go, hey man, I screwed the pooch. I didn't make sure it was reset, and you got to reshoot that stage.
Right.
That sucks. But if you're gonna be a good RO, that's what you got to do. You got to be a person of integrity. You got to step up and say, I made a bad call. I made a mistake. I didn't make sure it was reset. I didn't do whatever it was I was supposed to do. And either you get the benefit, because it depends on what match. Because some matches are like, nope, you didn't make sure it was reset. We're not reshooting them. They get the score that they got. And then some places are, nope, that's an unfair competitive advantage. They must shoot it again. Some places like, well, did he shoot over it? Well, he should have known it was there. He didn't shoot over it. Then, he gets a penalty for a failed engage or so. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I've seen all
that's
kinds.
my least favorite judgment right there. I hate that.
Yes, and I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
but it's not. And that's where you're stuck as an RO. You can't make that call. Like, you don't get to make that decision. That's a range master's decision, and it doesn't matter if you don't agree with it. A range master makes a call. You work for the range master. You got to do what he says.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
so I like this this next one here, Heath.
Not being distracting to the shooter.
Well, no, the one above that, equality. Yeah. So I've seen this. You made a note here. Equality, treat me the same as Jerry or Horner. So I've seen this in multiple ways. I've seen newer shooters, get treated like they're dumb or they're wasting the RO's time or something like that. I've seen, people want to follow Daniel around with a pillow and catch his magazines. And I've seen some ROs look at, say, like the, quote unquote super squad and give them a whole mess of shit. Like, you're going to reset even though you got those fancy jerseys on. You're not above this. It's like, whoa, bro, we just got here. What's going on?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Who hurt your feelings today?
All right. Well, I mean, I actually see, I had to say that I don't see as much like people getting on people that are sponsored like Jerry and them as much as I see, oh, it was Jerry. How am I going to give him a call?
I've seen that too. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, no, dude, I know he's great. He don't need any help from you to get a better time.
Yeah.
Like, he earns his time the same way I earn mine. He earns his penalties or lack of the same way I earn mine. You treat him, and that's all I try to do. You know what I mean? You get to, when I run a stage and the match director says you give him 5 minutes for a walkthrough, 5 minutes on the dot, then you can bet it doesn't matter if it's a super squad or the super new squad that shows up. I'm running a timer. You got 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And when that 5 minutes is up, I expect that first shooter to be standing there with all their gear ready to go. That doesn't mean 5 minutes to walk through and go get your stuff. I'm sorry if you're the first shooter. I've been that guy. I know how it is. That's part of the game, right? Like 5 minutes to walk through and get ready. In 5 minutes, I'm putting bullets down range. And if the first person isn't ready, the second person better be, because I will pass you. I've
You-
done that.
I like that everybody's phone has a timer on it now, because now you get like a legit 5 minutes and there's no arguments of that was too long, that was too short, or whatever. So I agree. Like all I want is my 5 minutes. I don't need. I mean, I would like 6, but just give me my 5.
Right. I'd say the only time that somebody may get more is if there's some kind of range deal going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe we have to fix a target or something that's out of our control,
Mm-hmm.
or we got some kind of deliberation from the last squad that we're taking care of when the new squad gets there.
Or painting long range or something like that.
Right, something like that. You might get lucky and get a little extra, but when it's time to go, it's time to go.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
But yeah, I agree. I was talking with Nikki about that, and that's what she said. I hate when I go shoot somewhere, and I think she probably sees this more at the ladies' match, because that's about the only time we really usually don't shoot together.
Mm-hmm.
And the ROs may not know her for whatever reason, and she's like, they just talk down to me like I'm stupid.
Yeah.
And I mean, she outshoots plenty of guys on a regular basis at 3 gun. She's experienced. She doesn't need coddling or anything special. She knows what she's doing. So just treat her like a professional. You act like a professional and do your job.
I see that a lot in the shooting sports in general, and I noticed it a lot when I shot like pistol matches. There was a lot of the stand over here, sweetheart, and blah 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 blah. And I've even seen like ROs grab a gun and clear a malfunction for a shooter. It's like, what are you doing?
Mm-mm. I mean, unless it's dangerous, you don't touch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Granted, that was a little local match. It wasn't a
Right.
major or anything, but seriously, like, what was the thought process there?
Yeah, and that some of that is, I understand some of it to be like, you got to take care of, like old school guys. You got to take care of women, and I kind of get that, but there are kind of 2 times where I don't apply that, right? And one of them is when we're shooting, because when we're competing against each other, we're competing on you got to shoot the same distance targets. You got the same equipment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's me against you. You got to know how to run your gun. You know what I mean? I do have to say the one thing I probably disagree with when it comes to stuff like that is I think coaching at local matches should be allowed. Simply for that, like, I've had so many malfunctions over the years, I don't even think about how to clear them.
Right.
But Nikki, I remember this has been probably 2-3 years ago now. She had just got her M2, and she had been shooting my SLP. SLP, you don't have to load anything on the lifter. You move the bolt back and forth, it loads every time.
Yep.
And she got a jam in that M2, and she was trying to work through it. And just out of habit, you know what I mean? I started coaching, you got to put hit the button there beside the trigger and load one on the lifter, and now cycle it back. Now you loaded you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And a guy come up to me right after we got done and was like, you coached her. You should get a penalty. And I was ROing,
Yeah.
And I was like, technically, sir, you are correct. I did coach her. So I turned to whoever was running the pad. I was like, put a 10-second procedural on my time for this stage. And it didn't matter. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, it's a local, man. Like,
right. It didn't matter on either. I felt like it was much more important for me to do that to show that, I was a person in integrity and hold myself to the same standards I'd hold somebody else to.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, at a local match, and you got somebody that is dealing with new equipment or a new gun or is new to the sport, or just goes into brain. Sometimes people just go into condition black and they just don't really comprehend.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? And you know, helping them in a local match, that's like the place for it.
Yeah, I mean,
that's my training.
exactly.
You know what I
And
mean? That's a part of my training.
club matches are a ton of fun, and I find it's great because a lot of times you've been shooting with these guys for like years and years, so it's fun to compete with them, and it's fun to give people a hard time when you're kicking their butt, but at the same time, there's no prize on the line generally, right? There's no sort of accolade, unless you have like a point series or something, but
Right.
I completely agree with you. If you're given like a new shooters meeting to like 6 or 8 people, you should, mark those people on their back like a turtle or something, and like those people you can coach.
Right. Yeah. But anyway, sorry to get off on that tangent. But
Nah,
yeah,
that's
I
all right.
think I think consistency and treating people the same is from top to bottom is the best way to be an RO, because again, you're trying to be fair to everybody, and the only way to do that is to treat people the same. You abide by the same rules.
Mm-hmm.
You face the same challenges. You have to perform under the same thing that I do. So if you get anything different than that, then it's an unfair advantage to somebody. I don't want to be harder on the guy because he's a pro than I do an amateur. That's not fair to the pro either.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not. I mean, I don't get getting upset with. I mean, I've seen some of that. I think some of it's like jealousy, honestly, but that I've heard. Like I've heard people make comments, especially on social media, where everybody's big and bad behind a keyboard. But they get to hating on people with sponsors. Well, I outshot that guy the last 5 times. We shot against each other. Why has he got that sponsor? Why not me? Well, first off, maybe it's because your attitude that you're demonstrating right now that he's got a sponsorship and not you.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? There are any number of reasons why, people get sponsorships as opposed to somebody else. And you never know what those are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
There's no way you can conceive that.
Yeah.
I remember, just case in point, I remember seeing a guy show up at a match, and this guy was FN'd out, right? Big FN jersey, a whole bunch of stuff, and I ain't trying to knock FN or whatever. This has been years ago, so please, it's nobody current. This has been so long ago, nobody would be able to figure out who this is. But when I saw him shoot, I was just kind of like, why does that guy have, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand.
I don't really get it, and then somebody told me later on, it's like, oh, well, he's good buddies with the GM at FN or something. I don't even remember what it was. You know what I mean? But it was like he had a connection.
Yeah.
And that's really all it was. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? If I had a local buddy, just for instance, let's say I had a local buddy that built custom shotguns, right? And I'm not especially smoking good shotgun operator, loader, and shooter and all that. But me and him are buddies. He might pick me to be his sponsored shooter because he knows me. He knows what kind of person I am. I'm easy to access. It may be really easy for me to take out and test stuff and get him data back really fast. I mean, there's so much in it goes into it. Like, don't hate on somebody because they got a sponsor.
Yeah, for sure.
And there are plenty of people that work year in and year out and year in and year out before they ever get it. And sponsorship is different for everybody. It can be as little as a discount for that product all the way up to, making a living off of it.
Right.
So I don't think you should pass judgment on folks because they have a sponsor.
Yeah, I've got a buddy that owns a off-road shop, Rockman Off-Road, ROKMEN, if you're into Jeeps and Toyotas. But I've known him since I was in college, and I believe he gave me like a baseball cap one time or something like that. But that's like the same thing, It's I don't have a Jeep, I don't have a Toyota. There's nothing I'm doing, but we've been buddies since we were in college and working at Sears together,
Right. So
yeah,
I hear you. I don't get that. I don't think anybody should do that. definitely.
Well, so
As far as hold it against them.
yeah, exactly. So sometimes there's conflict on the range. What can a competitor expect from an RO when there is some sort of conflict?
Well, a good RO should definitely remain calm when there's a disagreement about a call. They need to be confident about it. They should, yeah, they didn't hit that long range target. That's why I didn't call a hit, and that's what it is. And then when they ask to speak to the range master, that shouldn't get upset about it. You know what I mean? Okay, you saw it different than I saw it. Okay, and then you got to run that next person while you're waiting on a range master, because you still have that as an RO. You still have the responsibility to keep that thing moving, to try to keep everything on time.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll stop when the range master gets there, whether it's after the next shooter or however long it takes the range master to get down there. It'll be time to stop and talk about it. And just like I said, I personally don't care if the range master gives somebody a reshoot, even if I know I did everything right. If the range master decides for whatever reason, no, we're going to give him a reshoot. Okay, he gets a reshoot.
Yeah.
No skin off my teeth. I'm not getting, if everybody just stays calm, it's a lot easier, because it can be a challenge to stay calm when you got a competitor that's barking at you. You screwed up. I hit that. All right. You know what I mean? I didn't hit that non-thread, or, it's just like, okay, dude, like,
Yeah.
Well, you realize we are here, and 99% of everybody here is here to do a hobby and have a good time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, everybody wants to do as good as they can, and we're competitive, or we wouldn't be here. I get it. But let's keep it in the scope of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the other thing I would say,
it's not, did that shot save your buddy's life?
Yeah, exactly. This is
a game.
I mean?
It's a game. So how about we take it down a notch?
The other thing I would say, like, if as a competitor you do win a call, or as an RO you do win a call from, or excuse me, your call was correct from like the range master, don't gloat. There's no reason to do that. It's just going to create bad blood.
Oh yeah. Well, I can't even imagine that.
Yeah, I've kind of seen it. Where a guy will get a reshoot, and then at the end, he'll jab the RO with you called it that time, or something like that. But I've seen it on the other end too, of once the range master leaves, the RO will shout like, I told you weren't going to win, or something like that. So it's it's been a rough year.
That's sportsmanship from the RO.
Yeah.
Even though he's not shooting, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know that. I thank goodness I hadn't seen that, because that would really, that would, yeah, I'd be upset about that too. I stay pretty calm, but that might push me. That might push my butt into a little bit another level.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some weird stuff this year, to be honest. Like, last year was like all, lollipops and sunshine.
Right.
This year, man, I've seen some weird stuff, and I'm hoping it's not a trend, that it's just kind of an anomaly, or maybe I'm paying better attention than I used to. But
yeah, last year there was one match that I went to, and it was awful. I was not going back.
Did you RO this match, or was this just a?
No, I just went to the match.
Okay.
I just went to the match. I was just a paying competitor, and I did not like the service that I received at said match, and I was like, I'm not shooting that again. And crazy enough, everything except for the location and the name changed this year. So I went back.
Nice.
You know what I mean? But I know exactly, and I'm not doing it to dog anybody out, but I know who the range master was, and the match director specifically, that set all that up. And I do pay attention to that when I look at matches, and I would not go to one of his matches. I don't care where it's at. Wouldn't shoot one of his matches for anything. Yeah,
there's definitely a component to that as well, and you can look at it on just the basis of like, I like this particular person's style, and I know that if they're going to be associated with a match, then that is how I would like, or that is a match I would like to shoot. You know,
Right.
or the other extreme, which is I want nothing to do with any match that person's involved in. So
Yep.
I can totally understand it.
So, but I mean, I've been on both sides of that. I know earlier this year, I shot a stage, and the guy said not only did I not hit a long range target, he said I didn't even shoot at it.
Oh wow!
And it was the first target that I engaged, and it was distinctly shaped and in a distinct location. You know what I mean? I was like, how? Okay, I'm not going to argue the hit part, because if you say I didn't hit it, there's as an RO to a competitor, in my opinion, will never win that argument. The RO's sole responsibility is to call hits on long range, right? And if they just say you didn't hit it, unless you have video evidence
Right.
that shows otherwise, you're not going to win that. You know what I mean? And so I pretty much was like, okay, I disagree with that. And you say I didn't hit it, but I know I shot at it. Like I know, and I was like, how do you say the target was 350 yards away, and I shot more than the required number of targets rounds. I had makeups in there through this array of, God, it was a ton of long range stuff, because it had stuff from like 350 all the way into like 100.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was probably like, let's say 16, 18 steel targets out there. This is a bunch. And I probably shot 25 rounds at these 16, 18 targets, whatever. You know what I mean? Just makeup shots.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how can you say that I didn't engage a target 350 yards away? Well, I didn't see the bullet impacting it. The background for the target is the woods. You can't, you know what I mean? Like, come on, man. And, but I stayed calm. I was like, okay, well, I'd like to see the range master. And so I called the range master down there, and of course the range master does like he should. I didn't even approach him. I didn't try to cut him off. I'm like, let him go talk to the RO, get the RO side of the story, and he come back and talked to me. It was one of those soul judgment thing, and I explained how I knew that I had shot at the target because of the way the target was shaped and where it was sitting and everything. And the range master was like, man, I got to go with my RO. Like that's what he's here for. He's watching on glass. He, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, okay. I still don't, like I'm not conceding it. I'm not agreeing with it, but that's your call, and that's how it stands. That's just the way it was.
That's a tough one.
Sometimes you're the bug, and sometimes you're the windshield. And that day I was a bug. But again, in the scheme of things, the grand scheme of things, did it cost me some places in the match? Yeah. Okay. Like it really just, I don't know. It's not that should be laughed at or not held people accountable, because it's just a match. But at the same time, you got to keep stuff in perspective too. So
yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. So last couple things that the competitor can expect from the RO.
For the RO to be paying attention to what they should be doing, and for God's sakes, don't start a conversation with the shooter right before they get ready to. I know I've done it. I have caught myself like, why did I do that? Why did I? You know what I mean? Because you see that guy that's got a new piece of kit, or that gun you've only seen on the internet, or you know what I mean? They got some whiz bang that you ain't seen before, and you just like, oh man, I gotta know about this thing. You know what I mean? Your natural human inquisitive nature will want to take over.
Or shoot, even seeing one of your friends, right?
Right. Resist it. It. Don't fall into the trap. You know what I mean? Like, be a professional. Treat them the same way you treated everybody else. Don't ask them how their match is going. Don't ask them how their gun is running. You know what I mean? If they're shooting a PCC, don't ask them how many jams they had that day. You know, just go with it. You know.
Yeah, and if they're
match.
shooting a Mossberg like I used to, keep your mouth shut.
Yes. Oh, so, and the one thing, this last thing that really gets me, because again, I've been a victim of this, is guarantee the exact same target presentation to the best of your ability.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's a big one.
Yes. That match that I told you I would not return to, one of the major factors was they changed the target after I was penalized for the presentation of a target. They changed it for other people.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, man.
And I wasn't even asking for a reshoot. I was just asking for the to remove the penalty for not knocking it over. It was a steel target.
Uh-huh.
I was like, look, man, I will take the time penalty that I spent reloading my shotgun, okay, to keep this in perspective, and engaging that target multiple times. I will take that, you know, but this, you know, failure to knock it down, you know, you're changing the target presentation for everybody else that comes along after me.
Yeah.
Nope. I was like, okay, that's the call. That's the call.
It's messed
up.
Know?
And I was like, well, I'm going to finish the match here, but I probably won't be back.
Yeah. So the target presentation is definitely important, and especially like if you're like a limited shooter and you're shooting long range and stuff, you know, that stuff can change depending on how many impacts the target has. So yeah. I feel like that's an important one there.
You know, sometimes you go to these matches and you got range masters that don't paint in between squads.
Mm-hmm.
That's, you know, I mean, I can understand not painting a 350-yard target that's black. No, we don't need to repaint that in between every squad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But targets that are in the woods that were white, you know, completely white and almost glowing for the first shooter.
Yep.
And you ain't painted them all day long, that's a different target presentation, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes the RO doesn't have, you know what I mean? It's not up to them. If the range master comes in and says we're not painting targets, then you're not painting targets. You know?
Yeah, and that's
I like everybody. I
want
want it to be fair, but I ain't paying out of my pocket to paint targets for everybody going down there, you know. And but as far as what you can do is stay on top of the competitors and be sure that they're setting the targets up aimed in the right direction. Because I know you've seen it where somebody just sets a target up there and it's spun at like 30 degrees off axis where it's supposed to be.
Oh, yeah.
And you can see it, but it's a much smaller target than the guy that shot before. You know, and that's the RO's responsibility. It's their responsibility to be sure that target's up, and their responsibility to be sure that target's spaced appropriately.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Heath. So we covered, you know, quite a bit of things of expectations from a competitor and RO perspective. So what exactly as a competitor should we not do to maintain, or should we avoid doing so we can maintain a good relationship with our range officers?
Well, some of this is a little bit of a repeat, so we'll just kind of highlight this. But Be on time. Get the shooting order. Know where you fall in it. Don't get surprised. You know, be on time is from getting a stage brief to being on deck and ready to shoot to getting things reset. Everything. Just be there to do your job in a timely manner. Be sure you have a good attitude and not a negative attitude towards the staff or the match. You know, something may have happened in another stage prior to you getting to this stage. You might still be upset about it, but those ROs on that stage don't have anything to do with the other stage.
Yeah.
And they don't have anything to do with maybe the range master's call on some issue you had before that. So don't bring your baggage with them down to that stage and treat that RO like crap because you got a bad call or you didn't, whatever, before you got there.
Yeah, I totally agree. And along the same lines, let's do the opposite. Let's be as an RO, be fresh with every squad rather than bring. If you just had like a really difficult squad and a lot of quarrels and everything, try to put that behind you and treat the next squad coming in fresh, because they don't know what a bunch of dicks those shooters were. So they don't have any sort of context. For all they know is like, wow, this guy's kind of off.
Right. And that's I agree with you. And like I say, when you ask about what happens over time, when that group comes in the middle of the day on the last day when you're already tired, that can be quite the challenge for the RO.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? You're trying to be fresh and polite to everybody, but that's where that professionalism will shine through or not. If you got a guy that's, because as well as I do, it doesn't matter what true professionals are professionals in almost every aspect of their life.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't matter if it's shooting or business or friendship, like they know how to treat people.
Mm-hmm.
And you follow along with that, regardless of where you're at, and treat people decent until they give you calls not to.
Absolutely.
So, yes, I agree. Oh, for goodness sakes, when you do come down, don't act like you're special. You know what I mean? There are some people, they get on the range and, well, I'm somebody, so I deserve as many walkthroughs as I want. I can spend 10 minutes. If you're calling me up to shoot, then you need to wait on me to get all my stuff ready. And nope, that's not how it works.
And I'm not going to reset either.
Yeah. I generally, I haven't found that problem seems to have gotten better.
Yeah.
Over the last couple of years, I think, in general, but you still got a few, you know what I mean? And I know I heard something listening to your show a while back when you're talking about kids not resetting and their parents resetting for them.
Yeah.
I had never thought about that till you brought that up. And I'm like, you're absolutely right.
Have you noticed that too?
I didn't before then, but I pay attention to it now.
Yeah.
And when that happens, I'm still like, you need to be resetting.
Mm-hmm.
You're shooting, you're resetting. Somebody else wants to help out, great. You shoot, you reset. That's how it works.
Yeah, well, those youngsters that don't reset are the same ones that are going to ride passenger while their girlfriend drives the car, right?
Exactly.
To bring it back to a conversation we had before we got started here.
Yep. So, but yeah, as a competitor, be ready to get started. I mean, it's so frustrating when you're at the end of that last day, and people come running down there and they're like, "Oh, I need my 60-round rifle mag. I'll be right back." And you're like, "Really, dude? Really,
dude? You had a day and a half."
Like on average, when I RO, I cover between 10 and 15 miles a day. When I RO,
that's right.
15 being on the high end, 10 to 12 is probably more average. But if you get a really long stage, you can put 15 miles in a day. All right.
Yeah.
So on that second day, and you're 8 or 9 miles deep on that day, you're standing there. All you want to do is sit down and catch a breath. You know what I
mean? Yeah.
So we already covered resetting and being lazy. When a competitor takes forever to get ready to shoot, that is ridiculous in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I don't want to pick on anybody, but I generally see this from people that shoot a lot of USPSA pistol.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because when you shoot USPSA, you can literally get up, and when they say make ready, you can go through your whole stage plan, aiming at targets and everything while you're getting ready, right? but at most you got 18 targets there from a handful of different positions. We ain't got time for that at 3-gun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We got 45 targets out there from 12 different positions with 3 different guns. Look, I don't have time. You got to have that ready when you get up here. When I say make ready, if I say get a sight picture, that means take one sight picture from one position, make sure your scope's set the way you want it, and put it in the bucket to get it ready, or hold it to get ready. Load your shotgun and put it in a ready position. Load your pistol and put it in the holster or the staging area. You know, whatever it is. But it's not stand there and dry fire 3 rounds, take 3 different sight pictures, standing, kneeling, prone. No, that ain't it, bro. People are waiting.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
It's not time to finish your stage program in your head. Like, you need to have that down before you step into the box.
When you're on deck and that other guy's shooting, like, that's when you should be doing your mental rehearsal.
Exactly. And I tell you what I've started doing more and more too, especially now everybody's rifle's flagged. On your 5-minute walkthrough, go ahead and get your sight picture with your rifle.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's one less thing I got to do. You know, so that's just a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And as with anything in life, do not lie about anything to do with a match or a match staff. That's probably makes me more upset than anything. Don't lie about some, you know, I've had somebody flat out say, he never said that. It's in the written stage brief. I read the written stage brief verbatim. I know I said that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, it is not possible. It just is not possible. I've read it the same way for the last 3 squads. I'm the same one that reads the stage brief every time. I know it was read.
Yeah,
you know,
nothing will make me drop you quicker from my life as a person than catching you in a lie.
Yeah. I mean, that's some stuff I've had to deal with, you know, as a RO. You know, the match director come to me. Oh, somebody said you didn't tell them about, you know, this requirement right here. That's a lie. Well, I know, but they said, no, it's in the written stage brief. I read the stage brief verbatim. They're lying. They are lying about me. You know, and you want to make an enemy of somebody, lie to the match director about the RO.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know what I mean? Because I still know who did that. I think about it every time I see him. You know, so just don't do it. Doesn't go well. So, and don't blame any of your mistakes on the RO's instructions. You know what I mean? I've seen this several times, and it's, I don't know. People just have more integrity. That's it. Bring all your integrity with you to the range and use it as it applies to everything from the top to the bottom. You know, that's probably the biggest thing, because don't blame RO for something you didn't hear, something you didn't do, because, you know, that's generally a culmination of things. You didn't show up on time for the stage brief. When I read it, you didn't listen to it because you thought you knew what was going on. And then you got confused when you got up here and started asking questions during the middle of shooting. None of that is the RO's fault.
Right.
None of it. So.
Yeah, and I love your point of bringing your integrity to the match. You know, it's a much smaller, 3-gun is a much smaller world than you would think in the fact that you run into people all over the country. You know.
Oh yeah.
I went to 3-gun Nation Nationals last year in 2016. Mm-hmm. I saw Daniel Horner win the shoot-off. I drove to Blue Ridge in Kentucky, got out of my truck, and almost ran into Daniel Horner, like physically ran into him. You know, yep. So, and that was like a half a week later. So it's amazing how you see the same people over and over and over again. So once you get a reputation as someone who lacks integrity, it's going to be very, very difficult to shake. So,
yep.
So maintain that.
I agree with you 110%. Mm-hmm. I mean, I mean, you just can never get around that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like once your integrity is questioned, once your word is in question, it takes, it only takes 2 seconds to bring it into question, and it can take a lifetime to rebuild to keep it from being a question again.
Absolutely.
So,
It's so true.
yeah.
Well,
And I just, I don't know. It's not like it's a rampant problem. You know what I mean?
no,
There,
but
there are
there's a
so many great people in three gun.
mhm.
You know what I mean? But it does exist, and you need to. That's like I don't play golf, but like you have to self penalize in golf, right?
Right.
When you play in something, whatever, you should be able to do that in three gun.
Right.
You know what I mean? I know for a fact, like some things have happened. They'll be like, "Uh, I'm not sure if he shot that target or not." You know what I mean? And I
Mhm.
was a competitor, and I go back and look. It might be. I'll be like, "Nope, I didn't shoot that. I can tell you right now. I ain't never saw that target. I didn't see it in a walkthrough. It wasn't in the mental plan. I never shot at it."
Yeah, I've had that one before.
You know what I mean? Now I will say I have gotten some, like, some range calls where it goes in sometimes they go in your favor, sometimes they don't. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like there is some ebb and flow of that. So it's not like you got to go around and just pimp on yourself all the time. You know what I mean? I ain't trying to say that, because some of that is just like the penalty that I got, that I, in my perspective at least, don't believe I earned on that long range target, because I know I engaged it and I know I heard somebody call hit on it. You know what I mean? Then you turn around and there's another call where you're like, I think I got that. Like you're not really sure yourself, and they give it to you. Well, there's your balance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's some ebb and flow in that, and you got to realize it. Some days you're the windshield, and some days you're the bug.
Well, Heath, I got a couple questions for you here that I kind of thought of during our talk. So, for people that don't know, people that have only been in either the competitor role or have not gone to a major match, like what happens before a match, like before the main match starts, that competitors might be surprised to learn about?
Uh, Probably what's actually said in the RO meeting
Okay.
prior to the match. You know what I mean? You might think those guys get handed because some people think you shoot a local match. You're like, okay, we'll ride around. We're going to tell you what we're going to give you a stage brief so you can tell everybody else. And here's your box, and go at it.
Right.
And they might think it's kind of like that at a major match, but it's not. You know what I mean? Like there are meetings beforehand of logistics. This is who you call for target breaks. This is who you call for range master decision. You know what I mean? Be sure, this one stage is probably going to run a little long, so you're going to have to really hustle people along, and be sure people are resetting behind you as you're going. There's a bunch of that stuff that is predetermined, and every time I've RO'd a major match, it has always been, be 100% on your calls. Be sure you're giving people a fair match. You know what I mean? Like that's, the match equity is generally covered in that RO meeting ahead of time also.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good thing.
So, what would they? I don't know. You'd probably be surprised at people that say I'm not ROing anymore and find themselves ROing again.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you how many times I'm like, no, that's it. I'm done. It ain't, like it ain't worth it. It ain't worth the bickering and the long days and
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like
Shooting the RO match. Yeah.
right. And then I somehow find myself in the same position again.
Sucker.
Yeah. And I know I've heard it from other people too. So I ain't the only one.
Yeah.
So it's a reoccurring thing. So
Well, I would add like one thing to that. First, from a competitor perspective, totally appreciate you putting in your time, and every other RO out there listening to this. I did run a side stage at my hometown match here in Colorado, the Colorado Three Gun Championship,
Mm-hmm.
and shot the RO match all stages in one day, and then we proceed to do the side match the rest of the day. And side matches are interesting because the ROs a lot of times spend a lot of time doing reset and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I was so beat by the end of that I was like hugging ROs like thank you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So um,
Exactly.
if you
That's
haven't ever been in that position before, I would suggest doing some training, finding some mentorship, and then at least doing one match a year that you can call your service, your give back to
right.
the three gun community.
Yeah, because it's like I don't know. You should go do it and experience that side of it, if nothing else, to realize what it's like to be pulled from both ends for competitors. You trying to give them a fair match, and at the same time keep the match running and rolling for the match director, and to keep the match going good, because you're a part of that match. Either way, you know what I mean. You
Yeah,
as a RO, you are attached to that match. So if that match is good, then great, you're attached to that match. If that match is bad, well, not so good. You're still attached to it.
right.
You know, and that can be tough. I know. People will come to you and ask the RO questions about the overall match, and some of those are tough. Sometimes you just have to tell people, look, man, I'm not weighing in on that.
Yeah,
Like, I know what's going on. I know some stuff, and but it's not open information. And I feel you, but not my place, not
right.
my monkey. And that's tough. You know what I mean? Like sometimes, because people in three gun naturally want to help,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? And that was one of the things I had to learn to resist as a RO, because you will, if you run a stage in a major match, that first squad gets there, and you'll be like, it might be let me take that back. It might be the second or third squad, and somebody comes through there and figures out something you never considered, and nobody else has either before they got there. But it's awesome. You know what I mean? Like, oh, he really figured that out.
Right.
So your natural inclination is you want to tell everybody you see after that about what you saw. That's not fair to everybody that shot it before you saw that.
No, especially the guy that figured out the solution that no one had figured out.
Right. Like, credit to him, man.
Yeah.
So, and that's tough. You know what I mean? That's kind of like that natural inquisitive part. Like, we naturally want to help people.
Sure.
That's the one thing I had to say about the people in three gun. There's nowhere else in the world will somebody try to hand you a $3,000 to $5,000 piece of equipment and expect you to throw it down like you hate it, and be mad if you don't pick theirs because somebody else offered them the same thing. Basically.
And you're competing against each other.
And you're competing for the same prize.
Yep.
But I'm going to give you my $5,000 rifle scope combo and have my feelings hurt because you picked Jim Bob's rifle scope combo and not mine because your gas tube come loose because you put a brand new adjustable gas block on it and didn't let it set up right before the match or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you did something that was totally ill prepared to come shoot a match, but I'm still going to help you out. And what? Now you're not even going to pick my rifle? Oh, well, bump you, man. You won't find that. You know what I mean? I mean, if you went, I ain't going to say this 100%, but I bet if I walked up to a total stranger at a USPSA match and said, hey, man, my open pistol went down. I heard you got a backup. Can I borrow it? They would probably look at you like you had three heads.
Yeah,
Like,
I get that feeling
I don't
as well.
know you. You want me to give you my open pistol? And I don't know what kind of ammo you should, you know what I mean? Like, nah, bro, that ain't going to happen. But you do that at a three gun match and they'll be like, Oh yeah, man, sure. Here you go.
Yeah, it's in the truck. Here's my
When you get
keys.
in the match. You know, it's crazy.
Well, so here's a question that's one of my favorite topics. I'm a competitor. I'm showing up on Friday for a Saturday Sunday match, and I'm walking stages.
Mm-hmm.
I get to a stage where ROs are shooting. What should I do?
Stand back at your car and watch if you want to, but definitely don't get up in there trying to do a walkthrough while they're trying to shoot their stage.
What if I grab 2 pieces of tape and I pretend like I'm pasting targets while I'm actually air gunning?
No. Yeah, you are. You remember how you talking about you shot 9 stages in one day?
Yeah.
Like, how bad would you want to punch somebody in the dick for walking up and slowing all that down?
Yeah. Well,
you know what I mean? Like, you're like, dude, just get out of here. It's at the end of the day. You want to get done so you can relax, and your relaxation comes at no other than sitting on your stage so you can answer questions from people that want to walk through, which is not really relaxing. And you got somebody that wants to come up and slow all that process down.
Oh, yeah. Well, obviously that's not something I made up, right? Like, we see that all the time. And in that particular match, I saw the exact same thing. And I forgot the dude's name, but I can point him out of a crowd. Like, he followed us for 3 stages, reset 1 target, and was like air gun and stuff and everything. It's like, bro, it's our match, man. Get out of here. There's like 8 other stages for you to walk. Yeah. So
but
give the ROs.
He's going to see something and figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. That's a whole nother bag of.
So my point is,
chips.
Give the ROs some room to enjoy themselves, to have as good of a match as they can, because they are shooting on a truncated schedule and with other externalities to deal with. So don't put any more stress on them. Let them have their time.
Right. I mean, like I said, you can figure at least a handful of the ROs probably showed up to help build a match.
Yeah.
On some level, right? So, and not too many of these guys are like landscapers and outdoor construction guys. So they're not out in the weather kind of guys every other day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So they're out there building stuff, physically exerting themselves for a couple days beforehand, and then they're going to shoot the stage or the match in a condensed timetable on top of everything else that's going on, and ROing one another, because you generally RO almost everybody in the squad to which is your stage.
Yeah.
Right. So if you were to RO on stage 2, when you get to stage 2, you're probably going to go first. And then as soon as you get all your equipment taken care of, you're going to run the rest of the squad.
Yeah. So you can get those reps and those practices.
It's consistent as it can be. Right. So it's the same, virtually the same RO, except for a couple of guys. It's the same RO. So say there's 200 competitors. So 196 competitors are going to get the same RO. You know what I mean? Should be making the same calls, all that jazz.
Right.
So, yeah.
I like it. Well, Heath, man, we've covered a lot of ground here. There's been a ton of great advice that you put out for the 3-Gun Show audience, and I hope this becomes something that we can refer to down the road as, like, you see a guy on the range and you see him like maybe not respecting an RO like he should, or vice versa. You see an RO maybe not respecting a competitor. Point them to this episode here, and this seems like a really good guide on how we should be treating each other as like an RO/competitor relationship. So thanks for putting this together, Heath, man. This has been really interesting.
No, man, just my pleasure.
Well, let's leave the audience with one final thought, one piece of advice. What's one last thing that you can get out there for people?
I'd say out of everything, that being a person of integrity will take care of, a biggest portion of that. Be respectful of other people, their time, and all that. That will take care of probably 90% of what we talk about.
I 100% agree. Heath, thanks again for putting this together, man. This has been a ton of fun. It's great advice. It's a great step-by-step, and even for newer shooters, what to expect from a match and how to treat one another on the range.
Yep. Thank you.
And before you take off, make sure to check out the show notes at 3gunshow.com for links to things that Heath and I discussed in the podcast. You can also sign up on Patreon as a 3-Gun Show supporter or purchase your very own 3-Gun Show logo tee. And if you're listening to this in real time, the 3-Gun Show Born to 3-Gun shirts are coming back on Friday, Black Friday, just after Thanksgiving here. And we're doing a special contest, I guess you'd say, with Shredder Industries. So Shredder Industries is our buddy Mike Boone's apparel company, and he thinks that he can sell more shirts than the 3-Gun Show on Black Friday. And to sweeten the pot, we have both decided to donate $5 from every shirt sold to Generation 3 Guns. So every shirt sold on Black Friday from both Shredder Industries and the 3-Gun Show, the Born the 3-Gun Show tee, $5 goes to Generation 3 Gun, which is a great cause. And you can check those out at 3gunshow.com/merch. As always, this podcast is brought to you by Armalite, and Armalite has allowed me to get special pricing for listeners on their line of 3-gun rifles, both the 13.5 and the 18-inch, as well as the competition handguards, gas blocks, and tunable muzzle brakes. If you're looking for components to build your own rifle or a complete rifle itself, email me, dave@3gunshow.com. And, of course, anytime you see me on the range, you can check out my rifle and shoot it as well. And a quick reminder that if you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, subscribe in iTunes, Google Play, Podcast Addict, or wherever you get your podcast content, so you will always get the very latest. Thank you so much for downloading, listening, and subscribing to the show. I'm Dave Hartman for Heath Clevenger, and I'll see you on the range.
If you are finished, unload, show clear.